This is a 4¼ inch commander size. Now, what makes this special and what makes this underrated is it's far cheaper than a comparable Staccato, yet it's far higher quality. Now, at first glance, that really sounds all great. However, there is a big con about this that you're gonna wanna know about because it could make or break your decision on whether or not you wanna pick one of these up or not. But beyond the big con about this, there is another question. Is it actually worth a crap or not? And would I buy it with my own money, knowing what I know now? So if you're new to 2011, getting a decent 2011 that's actually worth a crap for less than $2,000 is almost impossible. More affordable 2011 started coming out. Like, for example, the SAS TAC 2 came out, and then at the end of 2022, the Springfield Prodigies came out, and we've made reviews on these as well. Who is Bull Armory, and why are their guns so much different than others? So Bull Armory is a company that's based out of Israel, and they're pretty big into the competition shooting world. In fact, they make a ton of race guns that you can get for competition use, and a lot of competition users use them. However, in the past couple of years, they've come out with a more tactical lineup for their double stack 1911s. They have a full-size 5-inch, they got the 4¼ inch that I have today, and then they have the 3¼ inch. And within those different sizes, they also have various options. As an example, on the 4¼ inch, this one has a standard stainless steel bull barrel on it. They used to offer a comped version of this. However, they don't offer the comped version. Instead, they offer a ported version called the SAS TAC 2 Pro model. And for the ultralight, they do offer a comped version, which I think is probably the best value, and we'll get into why the comped version is probably better here in a little bit as we get into the details on this. On the 5-inch, it's simply just a 5-inch. Now, what makes the Bull Armory guns a notch above the Prodigy is these are hand-fitted guns. These are assembly line guns. These are using high-quality steel and aluminum for the internals. These are using MIM stamped parts on the internals. And there's nothing wrong with MIM parts. All of our Glocks and all of our FNs and all of our MMPs all use MIM stamped parts. But in the world of 1911s and 2011s, that is the difference between having a very smooth, crisp gun and having something that has burrs and grinds in it, whether it's pulling the trigger or racking the slide. Now, in my experience with the Prodigies, I didn't really have any issues with them. Now, I also have a 4¼ inch as well as this 5-inch. I just don't have the 4¼ inch here with me today. But nonetheless, Bull Armory solves a very big problem in the 1911 market, and I call this the trifecta. The trifecta is a term that I think every company should be familiar with whenever they're going to create a product, because this trifecta determines if your product is actually going to sell or if it's not going to sell. There are 3 things that every single one of us as consumers want out of a product. We want it fast, we want it cheap, and we want it high quality. Now, the downside to this trifecta is you're only allowed to have 2 out of those 3 things. Let me show you a quick chart to explain what I mean. We got speed, quality, and price. Speed is representative of how fast you can get the product. Obviously, quality and price are 2 different things. So if you want good quality and you want low price, you're not gonna get speed. It's gonna take you a long time to get it. Additionally, if you want it fast and you want high quality, the price is gonna go up and it's not gonna be affordable. Or if you want it fast and you want a low price, the quality is gonna go way down. I'm sure you can think of a ton of things that you've bought in the past that apply to this trifecta chart. But the one thing that Bull Armory has done is they have brought the quality and they have brought the price point. The 4¼ inch SAS TAC 2s are right around the $1,800 mark, and the ultralights are a hair under the $1,500 mark, kind of depending on where you get them. And so, as you can see, you get really decent price in regards to what other 2011s cost, and you get the good hand-fitted quality that you would get from something more expensive. But as you probably guessed, you're gonna pay for it in the speed. I've seen people wait up to 6 to 7 months for these to arrive. And don't worry, I'll have links over at the parts list, but these are very difficult to find in stock, which is probably why many people haven't heard of these before, because they're being imported from Israel, and because not that many dealers carry them, they just haven't been able to get them into as many people's hands as Staccato has. Or better yet, they haven't gotten them into as many people's hands as Springfield has with their Prodigy. Now with the Prodigy, it also solved some problems on that trifecta. They brought it at an affordable price. They brought them where you could get them relatively quickly, but some of the quality did suffer, as we saw with some of the early models that came out where people were having problems. And thankfully, they have remedied the situation with the problems that were going on with these. With that said though, even if your Prodigy doesn't have any problems, you're still getting cheap internals compared to something like the Bull Armory. And when you compare the fact that these are about $200 to $300 more than a Springfield, yet they're about $700 less than a Staccato, it kind of makes it the Goldilocks for 2011s for people that don't have huge budgets to spend on 2011s. 2011s can go up to like 10, 11 grand, especially when you get into the competition models. This one right here is a signature toolbox edition 2011 that I did a review on not too long ago. I paid full price for this actually, from the people that make them. They only did a run of 5, and this was about a $4,000 2011, but the way that this thing shoots is absolutely stunning. For those of you that weren't able to get one of these, I will have something very special for you coming in the near future. But I wanted to bring this up because this is about a $4,000 gun, and it's a very heavy gun. It's not something you want to carry in a holster, but they shoot really, really fast and really smooth. You're not really gonna get that with some of your lower tier 2011s. Now the Bull Armories come in a really nice pistol case. It's actually one of the nicest pistol cases in regards to zipper bags that I've seen come with a gun in a long time. They also come with 2 magazines from the factory. You also get the gun itself, and then you get all the little tools and knickknacks for the optic system. Now the optic system on this is really nice. I actually like the optic system on here better than I like the optic system of the Prodigy, and I like it more than the optic system on the Staccatos. Here's why. On the Staccatos and on the Springfield Armory, whenever you want to put an optic onto your slide, they come with a plate that has the rear dovetail sight already there. And that is good because I am glad that they do that instead of just foregoing the rear sight, because you want to be able to co-witness in case your red dot goes down. If you look at the rear sight and the way it actually mounts with the rear sight set into place, and then they use a plate system for the different red dots. That's a good thing because, say for example, I have a Trijicon on here right now, and I wanted to put something that doesn't fit the Trijicon footprint. All I gotta go get is a different plate to mount it. Just having that rear sight set into place and not ever being moved also maintains the zero that is there for your irons, because anything can be moved, especially when it's on a plate. Now that being said, the best way to mount an optic to any gun, especially a handgun, is directly to the slide. But with 2011s, because their slides are pretty narrow, they typically always use some sort of mounting plate. Because if you look at the top down, and you look at the screws on this Trijicon SRO, and then you look at the width of the slide, you'll notice that you can't really do a direct mill, at least on some of these 2011s. Now, let me show you the difference between the optic system of this version versus this version. On this one, you don't maintain the rear sight when you want to put a red dot on it. However, if you look at most red dots, you'll notice that there is a rear sight on some of these smaller footprint red dots, and they co-witness just fine with the front sights that are on here. But we'll get into more about this guy here in a little bit when we go over the shooting footage and stuff. Now, when you first pick this guy up, you're gonna notice a few things about it. Number one, it's got some beautiful front serrations. I like them a lot. There's actually a couple of ports on the top, and we'll talk about those here in a minute because they're gonna be kind of important here in a little while. You got some decent rear serrations, and I like that everything is just black. I like my guns to be black and subdued. I don't like a lot of shininess on here. However, something that I did notice about this that's different than, say, the Springfield Prodigy or even the Staccatos is the beaver tail is actually not black, and a lot of the hardware on it is also not black. I would prefer all of that to be blacked out, but you could easily do that yourself, and I think I might here in the near future. You also get a full pick rail, and you get a double undercutted trigger guard, which seems to be about standard across a lot of these double stacks, even on the Prodigies. Now, the grip texture that's on here is insanely nice. It has a lot of grip, but it's not so much grip that if you put this in appendix holster and put it on, that it's gonna rub your belly raw. We'll talk about holsters here in a minute and I'll show you what I mean. It's got good checkering on the front strap and good checkering on the back strap. You'll also notice that this one comes with a magwell. Neither the Staccato nor the Springfield Prodigy come with a mag well from the factory. This one does. The magazines that are on this are proprietary and they are made by Bull Armory. However, you can buy MBX magazines that will also work with them. Those are more like your competition mags and they're kind of expensive. And then I believe Metgar also makes mags for these as well. I'll have links over at the parts list so you guys can find them. Now, the only downside to the magazines is you can't swap in Staccato mags into this. So if you already have a Staccato and you want to use those magazines, they just simply don't work. You have to get the proprietaries, the MBX or the Metgars. I want to bring your attention to the trigger on this guy. We're going to test the weight here in a second and look at the pull, but I wanted to show you something very specific about this trigger. This trigger shoe is modular. And what that means is you can change the trigger shoe by just pulling the trigger out and swapping in a different insert. This one comes with the short insert, but you can buy medium and you can buy long. And I do believe that they have some flat ones as well as curved ones. And I'll put some links over at the parts list for this, but I've seen some aftermarket companies come out with metal triggered inserts as well, because these that come with them, they are plastic from the factory. Not that that's a big deal. But now let me show you the coolest part, and that's the trigger pull. Right at a 2-pound pull. That one coming in a little bit heavier and just a hair over 3 pounds. Another thing I wanted to bring to your attention is look at how smooth this slide action is. When it's coming back home, it doesn't get stuck on the disconnector. Some 2011s and 1911s do, then they gotta be broken in, but this one was beautiful from the day one that I unboxed it. It was very smooth. Now let's get into what the shooting experience is like. So I picked both of these guns up on the same day. And on that day, I went straight to the range because I was on the way to get some footage. So I didn't put any lube on these. I just pulled them out, loaded them with range ammo, and went to town. Now on my first range trip, it did take me a minute to get used to the guns. You know, they were shooting a little bit differently. And I was also testing this gun the same day. And obviously, even though they're both 2011s, they have totally different shooting characteristics. And so it took me a minute to get used to the cadence of this. But once I got used to it, I started shooting this thing really easily, and it's just as accurate as I can be. The one thing that I liked about it the most is having the mag well down in here to get a really precise grip on here. I also like that the rail comes further back and I can put my thumb right here. Another thing that I like about this is when I go to press out, I can disable my safety and pull the trigger simultaneously. On some 2011s, actually a lot of 2011s, it is difficult for me to get that going because this hand will get up in the way of me depressing the safety. And that's gonna come into concealed carry here in a minute because we're gonna talk about that a little bit. I put a little over 450-ish rounds through this one, and I put about 300-ish rounds through this one. And this guy, I'm just gonna be real with you, it was a very snappy gun to shoot. For those of you that know me, I don't like small guns of any kind. I don't prefer anything that has a slim profile. I like Glock 26s, but I just typically don't like small guns because I'm just not typically good with them. However, I was pretty decent with this, but I'm still better with a Glock 26 than I am with this. That's not to put this gun down. That's just based on how my hands work and the ergos and stuff. You might shoot it and have a totally different experience. Now, a couple of things that you should look at on this guy is this one was optimized for concealed carry more so than the TAC 4 1/4 or the TAC 5-inch. You'll notice that the beaver tail has been cut down, and that is to aid in appendix draws so that you can get your thumb over that beaver tail as you're drawing it. Also, you'll notice that the hammer disappears when you pull the trigger, and the hammer doesn't come very far back when it's cocked, and that is to prevent your stomach from grinding on it if you're carrying it in the appendix position. Additionally, you'll notice that this barrel is much different than the barrel in the 4 1/4 inch, and it has a ton of flutes on it, and that is to lighten up the weight as well as dissipate heat. This one also has a different style recoil spring in it, and the recoil spring is kind of similar to like what we would see in a polymer striker fired gun. After playing with this one, I'm kind of wondering, why can't we take take some kind of guide rod system like that and apply it to the bigger 2011s? I don't know the answer to that. I'm asking. So if you know, let me know down in the comments section. The grip texture, however, is a little bit different than it is on the bigger model. And I gotta be honest, I don't think it's grippy enough. This one is plenty grippy. This one is not. I feel like if anything, they should have put the more grippy texture onto this guy because this one has more recoil. Nonetheless, I can still shoot it and I can still shoot it well, but still, I think they should have done that. This one also does not have a magwell, but on the frame itself, they do have a nice lip on the front to prevent the gun from slipping out of your hand during recoil. Now let's talk about upgradability of this one and this one. So as I mentioned earlier, they make a compensated version of this one. So because this one's so snappy, I wanted to add a comp to it. And so I asked the people at Bull Armory, can I order like just a comped barrel from you to put into here? And they said, no, they can't sell the barrels and comp separately because they are hand fitted into place. So hopefully I can get a comped version of this in the future just to test. Even if they just sent me the slide or whatever, I don't really mind. It just sucks that they can't send me the barrel because I don't want to request a whole other gun just to do a review on the comped version. But I think this one would definitely benefit from a compensator. Now with this one, they used to have a comped version and now they don't. But I did notice on their website that they now have a ported version, which is interesting because if you bought the non-ported, non-compensated version of this gun, you'll notice at the top of the slide has ports in it. And if you go to their website and look at their ported version, there's nothing different about the slide. So technically speaking, if you sent this off to a good machine shop that knows what they're doing, they could probably port these for you. And then you could have the same thing without having to buy a whole nother gun. That's always important to know. But every other part on here can be upgraded with the aftermarket. But honestly, on this one at least, there's nothing on here that I want to upgrade. Everything on here has been absolutely perfect for me. I've had zero malfunctions with this one, and I've had zero malfunctions with this one. And they run like tanks, and I absolutely love them, even though I don't prefer small guns. Now let's talk about holsters real fast. Now, because I do a lot of reviews on a lot of different guns, I don't typically want to buy a new holster for every single gun that I'm testing. That's why I have this one. I've talked about this a lot in other videos, and I'll make sure to have a link for it over at the parts list, but this is the Tier 1 MSP, and this will fit any handgun that a Surefire X300 will fit on, and as you can see, it fits perfectly. And you can also put your spare mag in there. You can adjust the retention on here very easily. And you can even remove the sidecar if you don't like it, and then just run it without a spare mag. But let me show you real fast. And this belt that I'm wearing is actually a very special belt that we are gonna talk about in my next EDC update. So as you can see, conceals like a dream. What's up with this focus? Sorry. So then when you undraw, boom, boom. Not bad, huh? So now we gotta get to the pros and the cons, and then the big con that I was talking about earlier. Number one pro, they're more affordable than Staccatos, and they're higher quality than the Springfield Prodigy. So it's kind of like a Goldilocks gun, like I said earlier. Second pro, they're smooth as butter right out of the box, and that's due to them being hand fitted together from the factory. Pro number three, they're super accurate. Pro number four, they come in a ton of different sizes and variants. Pro number five, at least on the bigger versions like the 4 1/4 and up, they have a superior optics mount to Springfield and a superior optics mount to Staccato. Pro number six, they come with a modular trigger shoe. Pro number seven, they actually come with a magwell. They have port ready slides, like I mentioned earlier, so if you want to get your barrel ported by somebody local, you can do that. Now, the biggest con to either one of these is the waiting period. I have seen on Reddit people waiting more than 6 months for these to arrive. But to be honest with you, in the custom 2011 market, waiting periods typically are about 6 months. Try to order an Infinity or try to go order something from Atlas. It's gonna be the same thing. I mean, yes, they're custom making your gun there, but they're also custom making it. These are hand fitted, just like the others. So if you don't mind waiting at least 6 months for a gun, then this isn't the gun for you. I would suggest getting something like the Prodigy or even the Staccato C2. The third con is I prefer a flush cut barrel or a crowned barrel, and this one isn't. It does stick out a little bit. It's not a big deal. I'm just nitpicking. But when you compare it to something like the Prodigy, even the Prodigies have a semi-crowned barrel. So, you know, I think that's something that they could improve on in the future. It's not a big deal, really. You know, the next con, as I mentioned earlier, is the mags are proprietary and there's only, I think, 2 aftermarket versions that will work with it. You do have 3 options, but I guess it could be a bummer to some people that you can't interchange with Staccato mags. And when it comes to the UL, I will add the con of the grip texture. I simply don't like it. It doesn't grip well enough. It needs some grip tape or something, especially once your hand starts sweating. I do like the flutes that are on here, but I don't know if they're really necessary. I mean, then again, I'm not an engineer, so I can't tell you what the real advantage of it is besides heat dissipation, because you kind of want more weight on the end of the muzzle for a smaller gun so you don't have as snappy of a recoil impulse. This is just my experience with a sample size of 1 of each. Other people could have had drastically different experiences, so I encourage you to go watch other people's videos. Don't just take my word for it. With that said though, I do have a parts list for everything that we talked about. That's the first link in the description, but let me know what your thoughts are on this. Do you think that these are a pro or a con, or do you think that these are just a waste of money? I do think at least this 4 1/4 inch is the most underrated double stack 1911 that not many people know about. For a price of sub $2,000, it's hard to beat. I don't know of many companies that are doing a better job at the same price point, but as I mentioned earlier in the video, there is a lot of affordable 2011s coming out in 2023, and I'm gonna try my best to get my hands on them and review them, so make sure you're subscribed so that you can check those out. But if you wanna see how this gun compares even more so to the Prodigy, then go check out this video right here and it'll tell you everything that you need to know. But until next time, guys, I love you and you guys stay sexy.